Jada. I'm currently a rising senior at Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School in Lexington, Kentucky. I've been part of the Student Voice team for the last 5 years, and I currently serve as the student director for the post-secondary committee. Like Kyle said, our main work focus is really on making the transition from high school into college as easy and as facilitated as it can be. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here with all these educators and counselors here, so we'd like to flip the situation up a little bit and try to warm up the crowd. With that being said, I'm going to ask you guys to take out your phones instead of telling everyone to put them away in their usual classroom settings. We're going to be trying a little warm-up activity with a program called Mentimeter. Is it not working? Is it good? So if you pull out your phones, go to the website that's on the screen, www.menti.com, and once you pull it up, you're going to have the opportunity to put in a code. Everyone good? Mostly getting there? Awesome. So while you guys are going up, we're going to get started just to see where everyone is. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to submit them through your phones. The first one that we're going to be asking is for every single participant here in the room today.
What's the code?
Tell me about putting it in there. Let's go back.
Oh. Here it is. There it is.
I know we're younger. It doesn't even not have as much trouble with technology as anyone else.
There it is. Oh, it's right over there. It's at the top. 746206.
So the code is 746206. 746206. Everyone's pulling it up while we're trying to get this troublesome out of the way. We're going to ask a couple of questions that have to deal with college readiness. We're seeing a lot of disconnects in what's actually being implemented in policy and what students and teachers really see it as. So the first questions that we're going to be asking, some of you guys are seeing it on your word cloud coming up, is in one word, describe what college readiness means to you. And I know that may be a little bit difficult, and how we're going to go about it is going to be a little different than what you might be used to. But in one word, as succinctly as possible, try to describe what it means. And while we're prepping this, we can see some things coming up, but if anyone wants to go ahead, we can just do it the old-fashioned way. We can shout it out if it's not going to work.
No, it's going to work.
You can see some of them out there. It seems like the biggest one with the most frequency is prepared. So seeing students that are going to be prepared and ready to be able to succeed in whatever environment that they want to. I'm seeing academic readiness, ready, holistic. So all in all, we're seeing words that really come together and describe a student that's going to be ready despite whatever circumstances that they're going to be introduced to. And it seems like prepared, academics, preparation are the biggest words that we're seeing. And that's a really interesting topic, right? So we're seeing words that are prepared, and we want all of our students to be prepared and successful, of course. But there's a simple line. So how can we measure if a student is actually prepared? We know that there's going to be some differences between high school and college, and we all know that we're going to try the very best that we can to ensure a smooth transition. But when we're talking about preparation, there's a very fine line between how we want to go about it and how we're actually going to be measuring it. So this is the key issue that we're now experiencing in terms of public policy and its implementation, seeing where we draw the line between how we can identify students as being prepared and how they're actually going to be perceived in the post-secondary realms. So let's go on to the next question. This is just for the students only. On a scale of 1 to 5, how ready do you feel ready for college? 5 being, oh, I am on top of it, I'm ready to go, and 1 being, I have no idea what I'm doing.
And it should just pop up when you're doing, if you still have the webpage open, it should just show up for you.
We seem to be right in the middle, around 3. Anyone have any reasoning to why they chose the one number that they did? Oh, don't be shy. You're gonna make me call out people. Yes.
Okay, so I put it 3 because I have taken necessary steps that they provided, but I still feel there's so much more that I could do.
So she said she put down a 3 because she went through all the necessary steps that she was told to take, but at the same time feels that there are a lot of obstacles and experiences that you can't prepare for exactly. Did I get that right? Awesome. Who else? Go for it.
I chose a 4 because I feel like
I chose a 4 because I feel like I've been successful in preparing for college, but I know that there's a couple of steps I need to take, aka studying habits I've obtained done through high school, and some of the coursework I feel like has not been as rigorous as I know I'm about to be a part of. So those are 2 things that I definitely know that I'm not a part of, but I feel like I will be successful with one of the other parts.
I saw one more hand around that table. Anyone else? Okay. We'll let you guys slide this time around. Now for the adults only in this room. I'm going to ask you the very same question, but just about your students. On a scale of 1 to 5, how well prepared do you think your students are for life after high school? We're a little bit lower. We're roughly in the same place. Any teachers or adults would like to explain why they chose the number that they did and how that ties into what they feel as if their students are experiencing? No? This is a really interesting thing because honestly, I didn't think that they were going to be as similar as they are. What we've been experiencing as we're going across the state and talking to both teachers, students, and an administration is the fact that there are going to be some differences between students and what their adult counterparts perceive in the classroom. And these major differences and issues is the main reason that we decided to go about these initiatives. Although we have very different definitions of what it means to be college ready, as we saw in the word cloud, I'd like to start everyone off on the same page. College readiness, to put it succinctly, as the Student Voice team likes to look at it, is being able to make the transition from high school into college successfully. Not just making it or not just being able to have that college and career ready check mark, but to actually be able to put it through with a purpose. However, there's a slight problem with this definition that we're putting forward. Currently, in the last few years, as served by the College and Career Readiness Public Policy, the only thing that a student really truly needed to be college ready is, you guessed it, a simple benchmark on an ACT. And this can be a little bit problematic. We can just have a 7th grader take the ACT, for example. They'll get great soaring scores if they're intellectually able. And if you put in the middle of a college campus, they're not going to be able to survive as well as you or me might be able to. So this issue is something that we saw that was very prevalent in our area. And we were thinking, why not take steps to prove it? If a lot of these students are being marked as college and career ready, then how come is it that a lot of students are having trouble making the transition, and most importantly, having trouble staying in college? Obviously, there are a lot more little nitpicky details that public policy isn't covering. There can be social factors, cultural factors, financial implications that public policy is skimming over. So this is the main reason and the main issue that we really got us started in this work. So with that being said, I'd like to invite Emily and Amanda to help me introduce the Student Voice team just a little bit more. Although Kyle gave you a brief background of what it was like and what we do, The Student Voice Team has been around for a couple of years as a branch of the Pritchard Committee, and we would like to give you a little bit of a background just so you guys can know what we're truly doing and what we're achieving.
Hi everyone, how are you all doing?
All right.
Great, awesome. Well, so the title of this slide is Who We Are, but I think it's more suiting that we title it as Who We Are Now, because over the last little while we've been growing and unfolding at a pretty rapid pace overall, seeing ourselves established as being a full think tank as a part of this Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence in June of 2013. So to answer it short and sweet, we are the Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team. And at any given time, we're representing about roughly 100 students from across Kentucky. Most of these students being high school students or working as undergrad, and along with wonderful adults who are also our allies. And we're completely self-selected, so that's who we are.
All right, and the next slide is all about what we do. So we are part of the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence, which is a statewide nonprofit which works to improve education through citizens' work. Although the Student Voice Team has only really come to be in the past few years, we have really quickly integrated our students as partners in this work, in policy making and reaching out. And really at our core, the most important thing about our program is that we work with students to make sure that their input is being added to education, because they bring such enormous value to make our schools better and to ensure that we're doing the best that we can for these students. We also believe that those at the front lines of our education system and our classrooms are in the best position to bridge education policy and practice.
So the Student Voice Team is usually centralized around Lexington, Kentucky, and we know that our group doesn't necessarily represent the vast majority of Lexington or even Kentucky students. And that's why one of our major initiatives is to go out and speak to students all across the state. A lot of the work and the research that we do is formed organically. We don't have any major initiatives or priorities when we go to schools and talk to students, and instead we focus on what we hear when we listen to them. There is such enormous and untapped value in these students, and only 10-minute conversations can lead to a vast array of issues and problems and solutions to make our education system a lot better. Through our research and outreach methods, we usually go to several different schools across the state. Many of the students from which here we've had the honor of talking to roundtables, both virtually and in person, to really see what their schools are experiencing and what their issues are and how we can help solve them. Throughout the last couple of years, we want to take an extension of our post-secondary work. As Kyle mentioned before, we had previously released an educational report called Uncovering the Tripwires to Post-Secondary Success, where we highlight the 3 major obstacles which we thought were hindering students from making the smooth transition from high school to college. Now that we have identified them, we're thinking, well, it's enough to see what they are, but then there are steps that we can take to how to improve the situation or make it better. And from there, we started our amazing partnership with Gear Up. I'd like to give him a great shout out for always helping us organize all these events. But we went to about 5 different Kentucky schools and spoke to high school seniors, college freshmen all across the state to really see what was happening and dig deeper. Before, in our first report, we were highlighting this idea of marrying the heart and the head, using both statistics, the head and numbers, and the heart, actual voices from students from across the state, to really bring these facts and statistics to life, and to give it a voice, to give it a name, and to have it have a greater impact than it would with just numbers alone. But we found something a little bit off with this idea. Although quotes are an amazing way to put students forward, we were missing the narrative. We were missing the individuals and who they are. So that's when we came up with the idea of having specific interviews. It's this really cool concept. When we go into a school, we pull out students and have such an informal and amazing discussions with them, usually from anywhere around 10 to 12 students in a group. And we found that the students that are usually the most quiet in class are speaking testaments about their education system. And we thought, why not dive a little bit deeper? And from there, we took the students from the round table into interviews and had one-on-one discussions about their stories, their narratives, where they come from, and how that impacts their education. And from there, we were able to unearth a lot of interesting discussions and topics, which we're going to be sharing with you today. This system system, as I said before, evolved organically, and all the themes that are now approaching from it are all things that the students are saying. And we like to say that we're just a mouthpiece or a microphone for these students. You're here to listen to what your students have had to say. Along with these interviews and voices, we put together a survey. And with this, we were able to marry the heart and the head. Over 400 responses were collected from students all across the state that took it. And from this organic, original student voice survey, we were able to craft a survey by students, for students, and the solutions are going to be reached today. What we really found, however, is that no report can be fulfilled with either a voice or a fact. Instead, we see the most amazing results, the most impactful results, when we put those two together. With this being said, we're going to hop right into the heart of our research with what we like to call the Fact Voice Initiative. With this, we are putting together each one of the facts with each voices that we found from across the state. And I could talk to you for hours about where we went and what I heard from different students, but I think it would serve testaments for the actual statistics and the actual quotes from the students that we interviewed to be presented to you instead. With this, we are reporting the results of raw data from a survey that we collected and analyzed, and we're also going to be giving you actual quotes from recorded transcriptions of our interviews that we had with students. With that, I'd like to invite all of my fellow Student Voice team members to come up and give a quick presentation that we'd like to call the Fact Voice Initiative. We came up with 5 themes in general. The first one was school climate. When we were talking to students, we were understanding that where they were going to school had an extreme impact on how they viewed their education. It wasn't necessarily that they were going to school for their grades, but the way that they were perceived in that environment, the way they were able to communicate with others, and the impact of safety that they had played a huge role in how well they were able to succeed academically.
Hello, I'm Emily Matthews, and I'm going to be presenting a few facts that the Student Voice team has found according to our original survey. 70% of students reported suffering from testing anxiety from a majority of the time to every single time. 50% of students feel like they have not had a meaningful discussion about steps to college or career readiness with their counselors. 25% of students report never having discussed college readiness with their counselors or teachers at all. And according to the National Education Association, students and schools that promote engaging learning environments, communication, and interaction tend to have fewer student absences and improvements in academic achievement across all grade levels.
And now for a voice to go along with that, we have Jane, a Northwestern Kentucky student. My sister passed away of drug overdose in January. It was completely unexpected and traumatic and absolutely horrible for my family. That stuff is typical here. I see a lot more college counseling than guidance counseling for mental health. They prepare a lot for what's going on after high school, but they don't tell you about what's happening here, now, at home. It's not something we really talk about or address, and it just gets worse. And to go along with that, Kennedy, a Northern Kentucky student. The New Arts program just gives me a sense of belonging. I don't come to school anymore just because it is the only option. I keep up my grades because some of the extracurricular arts need me to, and that's it. It's not because I'm dumb, I just don't see the point. I start to wonder how many kids like me went to the school before the new principal and arts program. I wonder if the teachers thought that they were dumb when they really weren't. The school was just uninviting before.
What we're seeing is that students have loads of testament to say, and what's really captivating about these is that when we talk about these issues, the first response that we always get to every single one of these questions is silence. Students have never necessarily given the opportunity to speak in these opportunities before. And because of that, we really have no idea how to approach the issue or where to even begin. We're also seeing that education is much more than whether they just want to leave the county or not. We're seeing, as a Kentucky student from Lexington, I necessarily don't have the same experiences as I would someone in Drake County or Hart County. And being able to travel into these areas is very eye-opening for not only myself, but my entire team, as we can see the cultural differences that exist. For example, when I'm growing up, it was very normal for my teachers and my counselors to very push college and all these other post-secondary options for education. However, when we're traveling to these different areas, we understand that college may not be for everyone. In fact, careers are a very important factor to education by policymakers. But don't just take my word for it, take these facts and voices instead.
Fact. According to our original survey, the main reason students decided not to go to college was because they would prefer to stay home immediately and have a full-time job. The second leading reason was that it costs too much, and students didn't know where to begin. The third, because they believed college wasn't important. Of the students that plan to apply to college, 85% of them are looking for in-state universities. Only 3% are heavily looking at colleges outside of Kentucky. 40% of students believe that the college is not necessary to be successful in the modern day and age.
Todd is a student from northern Kentucky. This is his story. My dad didn't go to college. He's actually very offended by the idea that I want to leave home and go to college. He thinks that I am too good for him and my family. I have no respect for where I'm from. If I leave for college, I doubt that they won't let me come back to visit. Leaving my county means never seeing it again. Leaving my county means saying goodbye to my family because they won't want to see a traitor like me again. Leaving my county is about so much more than just education. And Emily, a student from eastern Kentucky. We are convinced that we cannot reach heights outside of what our small town has to offer. It is normal to not ever leave the county, to get a job right after you graduate, to never leave home. I feel that this encourages students to think this way, promotes this cycle of poverty. We are captives in our culture.
And we're not only seeing it in these cultural ideas throughout generations as well, but we're also seeing some issues arise with adult support. It's no question that the students who they look up to, including teachers and parents and counselors, play a very huge role in how these students can grow up to view not only their education, but careers after high school as well. And this differs from culture due to the fact that there are some very specific conversations that can happen. Whereas what is expected in your cultural area, how is this related to the people that you talk to, your teachers, your counselors? And what are the impacts of having both a positive and a negative impact from parents across the state? Our voices and transcriptions and narratives can kind of go and test to see what a big impact adult supporters can have in a child's education, not only for the lack of such, but also how a positive influence can go miles in how a student views themselves and their future careers.
Fact. Of the rural students that we surveyed, less than 10% cited their parents as motivation for wanting to attend college. And about 20% of students reported that they do not feel like they have a parent or guardian who cares about their academic performance. And 25% of students don't feel like they can approach their parents or guardians if they need help in their academics. But according to the National Education Association, students with parents more involved in their education are more likely to score highly on tests, more likely to attend school regularly, and more likely to graduate and attend post-secondary education.
Voice. Catherine, a student from Northwest Kentucky, stated, "Students just don't have an outlet, really. They can't talk to anyone. It's important to have a counselor at school who is designated to help those kids who have no other option. They need someone to lean on." Ashley from Northern Kentucky said, "Yes, I'm a mom. My 13-year-old sister was born like 10 days after I turned 4, and my dad was really bad on drugs. Crack was really big back then. My mom worked at Wendy's full-time, and I was babysitting. I wasn't allowed to hang out with friends after school because I had to go home and take care of my 2 little sisters. And I hated it. But then I realized that they have to work. I had to learn how to cook chicken noodle soup at the age of 4. I don't remember the last time I was a kid." And finally, Grace from Eastern Kentucky said, "When I go to college, I want to go into education. My teacher makes it his duty and his job not only to make sure that school is a safe environment, but that each student feels important. He genuinely wants to know each and every student that walks through his classroom. Some students find it strange that their principal and teachers pay more attention to them than their own parents.
So not only is this connection important, but we're seeing through these narratives an entire evolution of students throughout their high school careers. We're seeing that students are coming in and how they're transiting, and all their entire lifetime goals being translated into these 4 short years throughout high school. And in addition to this, we're seeing students and their initial dreams and hopes and environments and how that relates to what resources the school can provide them. When we went to different counties all over the state, they had amazing facilities and resources, absolutely outstanding to what I had in Central Kentucky. But they were really well in agriculture and welding, and all these career pathways were absolutely phenomenal. And those were great for the students that really wanted to go into those fields and go into a career right afterwards. But we're seeing some students that may feel a little bit marginalized, especially if they don't want to necessarily go into these big career pathways provided by their schools.
Fact. According to our original survey, of the students that are going to college, 2% are interested in agriculture and farming as an educational field. Of the students that are not going to college, 15% are interested in agriculture as a career. But in 2013, according to KCEWS, only 1.5% of jobs in Kentucky were provided by agriculture, mining, or other similar fields. Of the students we surveyed, 15% did not retake the ACT because they couldn't afford it. The United States Department of Education reports that 40% of high poverty schools do not receive a fair share of state and local funding, and as a result, these students are forced to make do with fewer resources than their wealthier counterparts.
Voice. Greg, a Southern Kentucky student. I've wanted to be an accountant for all my life. I'm really good with numbers, and I've always loved math, but my school is encouraging me to take welding and agriculture science classes. The school is against me. They're putting me in classes that would give me a job here, but I don't want to stay here. We have lots of resources for welding and agriculture, but not so much for accounting. And Josh, a Northern Kentucky student. You can't just think about it. You cannot think about how the other schools across the county lines are so much better than us. Sure, they have more money than us, so they're gonna have better equipment and teachers and stuff. That's what happens when you have money. But we can be just as good, if not better than them, if we try. Too bad everyone here would rather smoke weed, they would rather drink and stuff, they would rather move on from their dreams and future. They move on.
And lastly but not least, we're seeing a big discrepancy in the way we're measuring accountability and the final focus of how these students are actually being perceived in the way that we're functioning. This comes most certainly with the way that we're currently measuring college readiness in terms of the ACT. Thankfully, I've had the opportunity to serve with Commissioner Pruitt and change a couple of the accountability models for the upcoming year. But up until then, the student voices have to talk about that, do have some testaments to make about the way they feel as if they're being prepared for college and what they actually think would be the most effective ways to go through with it.
Fact. According to the students we surveyed, 68% of students do not feel financially ready for college. 27% said they have little to no understanding of the college application process at all. Of the students that took ACT prep outside of school, 84% reported having higher scores. Those that didn't take the prep cited expenses and lack of time as obstacles. About 50% of students disagreed or strongly disagreed with the statement that they are a good test taker. 70% of students either disagreed or strongly disagreed with the statement that I perform better on standardized tests than I do on tests in class. According to the findings from the Council on Post-Secondary Education, graduation rates for low-income students trying to earn a bachelor's degree fell from 46.2% to 34.5% in the last few years, and minority graduation rates also fell from 37% to 34%, even with college-ready systems in place. In 2015, according to the Kentucky Center for Education Workforce Statistics, only 62% of Kentucky high school students were ready for college or a career after graduation, although 56% are marked as college ready. For the past few years, less than 20% of Kentucky's residents have either
in my junior year. I got an A on every single one of my classes, including the AP classes, and I was able to, at a minimum, pass them all too. I let all the clubs stay on top of all my schoolwork and studies, a lot. I got a 20 on the ACT. I had a friend who got a 30 on the ACT. He had awful grades, slept in class, and was not invested at all. When he graduated, he got to go to University of Kentucky, and my school made a huge deal about it and praised him for all of his hard work. A few weeks later, he dropped out. Now he doesn't do anything. Now everyone back at school is thinking, if this guy with a 30 on an ACT can't do it, then I surely cannot do it if I only have a 23. And Mrs. Jones, a Central Kentucky teacher. I'm currently a science teacher. I got a 19 on the science test. I went to college for free, I have a master's degree, and I'm going back to school to get my second master's degree. I have a full-time job with job security, retirement. I can take vacations and still get paid, but I got a 19 on the science test. So no, the ACT doesn't measure aptitude, potential, or success. What would instead? I think it's a combination. The ACT is only a piece of the puzzle, and it doesn't dictate everything about whether or not I'd be prepared in the way public policy is currently doing right now.
So these are the 5 major themes that we came up with. Cultural goals, school climate, adult support, resources, and accountability. And these are the issues on which students were saying firsthand what they were experiencing and what they thought are future priorities for us to go and combat them. Kyler, who is a Secure Up student here, has graciously agreed to speak to us about what it felt like for us to go in and speak to him and his peers about all these issues.
Hello, I'm currently a graduate from Tree County High School, and I was a part of the Pritchard Prior Committee, and they came and they taught, it was I wasn't ready for this. It was a voice chat, video chat, and it was a part of Sahara and Kim, and they asked us questions about how we felt we were being prepared for college readiness in our school. And me and about 13 of my other peers, we sat at a table and we all had this conversation as they asked us questions on how we felt that we were being prepared. And we all unanimously agreed to the fact that we do not feel like the educational system is living up to its aptitude on how we feel like we should be prepared in going into the college field. And I myself feel like I have been prepared, but I've known that the school system wasn't going to prepare me, so I had done that alone on the side by myself, knowing that I would have to do a lot of work by myself to get through and do what I need to do and get through college. But in a standpoint as another student in our school, I feel like a lot of it they're not going to understand unless they have someone standing there telling them that they need to write this, they need to do this, they need to understand this. Our students don't have a voice. We don't have a chance to get our voice out there and understand and know what we want to learn, what we need to learn, so we can get to that next level and strive in what we want to strive in. And that's a problem that we see in our everyday school systems, is that a student doesn't have a chance. They don't have the choice to take what they want to take. The school assigns it for them. Especially in my school, as I see every day, our teachers, they're giving us choices to take the classes, but their classes are all there decides. They have arguments every day saying that we need this, we need that, we don't want this, but they don't ever ask the students. They say, hey, we need to add another algebra class, we need to add another anatomy class, 3 different branches off the same subject, but kids don't want to take that. They're all electronic. And as the teachers are focused more on the fact that they're losing jobs because a computer is teaching the kids, no one's looking at the kids saying, are they learning? Are they understanding what they need to know to get to the next level? They're putting them behind laptops and computers and teaching the curriculum that they feel like they need to know, but half the students don't understand what they need to know, what they want to know, and what they feel like they need to know to succeed. They're just being told that this is what they have to succeed. And as the Pritchard Committee has opened my eyes to, especially today, learning what they have done, and what I saw talking to them, and what I've seen through my 4 years of high school is that I think the school systems have a long way to go. They need to reach more for the heart part of that, what they're talking about. And I'm glad that I was a part of that. And I really hope that they understand that there's more to a student than just a body, than a number that's going to walk onto a campus, and they think that them putting them behind a laptop and reading and doing small little things that they don't want to do isn't going to prepare them, and that the statistics aren't going to go up if they keep doing less in the classroom. And so I just hope that they will step up and understand that if they want a kid or a student or an adult even to be successful on a campus in real life, that they're going to have to apply themselves onto that student and help them understand what they need to do instead of putting them behind a computer and hoping that they understand. And so, yeah, that is what I've learned from the Pritchard Committee and what I've voiced. And I hope that they will succeed in helping schools achieve what they need to achieve.
So although we've identified these several different themes, there are several ways in which we can go about addressing these issues, which is where we come up with our 6 major points for us to be starting to implement in schools. We like to say, don't just sit there, let's start working. So the first one of them all is to start to address a positive and supportive environment. Sometimes kids come to school for much more than just an education. It could be a safe haven, a place to see their friends, somewhere where they can have a reliable meal. And this all comes to the idea that we need to have a more supporting and open environment. This can be anywhere from more peer-to-peer contact to more meaningful student and teacher conversations, and reaching out to seeing students and teachers can be partners instead of just consumers of their own education. With this being said, we can also take the next step in order to have an idea to make college a possibility for everyone. Of course, college is not going to be for everyone, and we understand that. Some students are very looking forward to going to careers right after college. But opening the possibilities and the explanations for every single student to know what steps they can take and what steps are most important to take when preparing for college is going to be an absolutely essential step. This can be anywhere from increasing FAFSA awareness to show students that college can be affordable. This can be anywhere from introducing them to the Common App, introducing them to the ideas of they have to start writing college essays, they have to look into what they're interested in, and see where fields of education they're really passionate about. Along with that, we have our third suggestion, which would be to find a mentor to guide and support them. This can be anyone, from an older student to a teacher, to a counselor, to a parent, or even another guardian, or even an older peer to help them guide through this process. It's very scary, and frankly, I don't think any one of us students that are sitting here before you today would be anywhere that we are without your support and your help. With this, we're seeing that we need to increase the possibilities of students' access to counselors. We're talking to students and understanding that the difference can really come down to the counselor in which how prepared a student can feel after college. This can be anywhere from regular conversations, from speaking to students more often, to sitting down and evaluating their options and their best plans. Not only telling them the plans that they have in front of them, but explaining and having discussions to see which one best fits the student. Next, we also have the idea to help mitigate the gaps in resources that are available. We spoke to students and seeing that there are different resources for different agricultural fields, or for example, accounting fields that they wanted to go to. Several students cited that they felt as if more high-level courses and AP classes geared for the students that wanted to go to college had a little bit more emphasis than the rest of the classes did. Not necessarily because it was meant to be that way, but it happened to be executed as such. One major fact that we can reduce is having to have resources more allocated to all different areas, whether they be sports or arts or any field, to help have the opportunity for every single student to have the career pathway that they wanted to go down. Next, we can also have students to see that they're more than just a test form. And this can be a difficult concept due to the fact that up to now public policy and the way that it's been initiated has only served students with benchmarks and test scores. Once a student reached that benchmark, they were cited as college ready, which can be cited as a problem as it can be embodied by the students and the parents and the counselors that are then going to see it the same way as well. What we're seeing is that acknowledge that students have backgrounds outside of school. Talk to them about their different backgrounds, see what they're interested in, listen to their stories and narratives. Students that might be very involved in school and very apparently ready for college may not link up with the same match for a college test score. And last but not least, the most simple of them all, listen to students. We're not asking to take over your jobs, we're not asking to be able to have a permanent position of speaking, but we do like to be represented. In the end, we all have the same end goal. We want to have a better education, we want the system to improve, and most importantly, we all want to have successful futures. And because of that, we need to start working together and bridge the gap that's currently existing between teachers and their students. We talk to students and parents from all over the state, and we see major disconnects in the roundtables between what the students cite as major priority issues and what the parents or the counselors or even the administrators might ask. Talk to us. We know exactly what's happening in the classroom because we spend 35 hours a week in there along with every other teacher. We see the direct implementations of every single public policy that's passed, and we experience and reap these results in the end. We want the same invested education system as you do, and we want to only see it improve alongside you. With that being said, what are we up to now? All these transcriptions and interviews that we've been going around the state and talking about are now being crunched, transcribed, and put together into narratives for a major book that we're going to be publishing at the end of August. All these different narratives are coming together to really show the story and the progression of students that we feel as if is missing out for most of public policy experts. We're seeing the narrative students, like I said before, their progress throughout all 4 years of high school, and now we can see not only the problems, but the causes of these issues and how we can better go about and change them. Not only instituting this just to have a voice, but to see where these major issues arise. Most times, often not, when there isn't a student voice, they're simple quotes. And because of that, we want to help mediate that by having a full-length discussion of each individual student across the state that we interview. In addition to this, we're taking our survey that we got to hear a few stats and statistics from today and putting it together in a final educational report, separate from the book itself, to kind of mediate the responses between the audiences. This is going to be titled Ready or Not, and we're very excited for its release coming up later this summer, which I will be sure to let every single one of you know when it comes out. And if you guys do want to keep posted with us, we have Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram, all of which we love. And we also have a Student Voice Team forum up right now. So in addition to all these voices and narratives that we're talking about, we're asking students to write their stories and publishing them online, which you're more than welcome to visit. And students, you guys are more than welcome to write for if you have anything that you feel as if is worth sharing. With that being said, I'd like to thank all of you for your time. I understand that it's not very normal for our students to come up here and present, but we really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's not the normal way to start a conference, so we have given you all lots to talk about this afternoon. Can I just have one more big round of applause for this? My name is Kim Drummond. I'm the Director for Strategic Initiatives for Bureau of Kentucky. I'm going to give you a